Yo, YouTube, welcome back. Den Boys, Garth,
Vaughn.
Together we are the Den Boys, and we're back for another episode in the games room. It's been a while. It's good to be back.
Yes.
Today we are playing a heavy hitter. This is a big gun.
A Grail item.
Grail for the Saturn.
None other than HyperDuel for the Japanese Sega Saturn. It's a game that I've, since collecting Saturn games over the last 20 years, have dreamt of owning. It's hellishly expensive. There's no beating around the bush.
No cheap.
But the people looking for it know that. We're here to talk about HyperDuel, which we took for a solid spin today.
Yeah, played a fair bit of it. Just before we get into HyperDuel, just a reminder, we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so please hit the subscribe button, do all that like and sharing and all that great YouTube stuff, and we appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. I recently got this for you on my last trip to Osaka, Den Town. Very appropriate that I picked that up for you there. Like I said, it's been on your list for a long time.
Yeah.
A bit of history about the game. Why is it so special?
It's from the legendary developers Technosoft, who anyone who loves Sega will know Technosoft from the Thunder Force series on the Mega Drive, Thunder Force 2, 3, 4, etc. 5 on the Saturn as well. Technosoft, they didn't make very many arcade games. This is sort of one of 2 or 3 arcade games that Technosoft made, and that was from '93, and then it got a home port only for the Japanese Saturn in '96.
Was it ever going to come to the PS2 at any time, or was it always going to be exclusive?
I believe it was always exclusive to the Saturns. Technosoft had a pretty exclusive relationship with Sega, a couple of early PS1 games, but they were very much under the blue umbrella.
Yeah, cool.
They brought it across to the Saturn in '96. A small print run, the rest is history. And Technosoft, of course, legendary, so it's an essential piece.
And the cool thing about this was, and we'll talk about in how it plays, but you actually get both the Saturn version and the arcade version on the disc, which is great.
Yeah, they made some tweaks, some enhancements, arranged soundtracks, sort of tweaked the color palette, refined the graphics a little bit, but you get both versions. The stock standard arcade and then the enhanced Saturn mode.
So as per usual, we'll talk about how it plays. So we'll talk about the arcade version versus the Saturn version, a little bit into depth about that so you can find out the differences. And then we'll talk about obviously things we like, pros and cons, and then we'll talk about whether it's worth going out and getting yourself a copy of HyperDuel.
Taking a bank one.
Spoiler alert, it might not be. Cool, so let's talk about how it plays.
Look, it's a 2D horizontal shmup. That was sort of Technosoft's preferred sort of format, genre. If you played any of the Thunder Force series of games, you
know what you're getting. From a shmup noob, or not someone who hasn't played plenty of shmups, but I'm just not very good at them. 2D shmup, a bit of variety in terms of power-ups for your weapons, 3 different characters which all have different strengths. So there's one character that we didn't really get the hang of. I can't really see the benefit of him yet. Was the professor?
Old professor guy.
And he has, because the game works around 2 modes. There's a plane mode, normal, plane, horizontal, and then there's a robot mode. So when you press the B button and hold it down, you can turn into the robot. You do way more powerful shots, but you're more likely to hit because you're in a vertical mode. Bullets will hit you.
Very Robotech.
That's the vibe. But the professor, when you turn into the robot mode, his spread shot goes about a quarter of the distance of the other players. So therefore, you've got to get really close to enemies to get the full advantage. So we're assuming from what we've played that his shots are very powerful but very hard to hit because you have to get so close. So he was kind of a non-play for us. But
at an early stage. And you could stay in plane mode the whole game if you wanted to. You don't have to go to robot mode. But the reward, you do like 5 times the damage in sort of mech mode. Bigger target. And yeah, one tweak in the Saturn mode, which makes that mech version even stronger. We'll get into.
Some of the stages have, environments that you can't touch. That's instant deaths.
The walls.
The walls and things like that, which not all shmups have. Set in space, so there's a lot of spaceship battles.
Yeah, you kind of start in space and then gradually...
there's a crash on Earth there, some Earth stages.
So you get a sense of that journey, kind of,
Yeah. But the main gameplay is around a 2D side-scrolling shmup with the 3 different characters and
the plane to mech.
Plane to mech is the big selling point.
The touch of a button.
Touch of a button.
Yeah, which is seamless and is implemented quite well.
And interestingly, the other gameplay element that took a little while to get used to was there is a bomb button, and it's by holding down the A and the B button. But when you think of a bomb like Dodonpachi or something like that, a big bomb that fills the screen and takes out lots of enemies or kills all the bullets of the enemies, it doesn't quite work like that. It's more of a spread shot that covers the entire screen and kind of clears all the enemies.
A meter that like fills up, and then when you sort of access that sort of bomb mode, it sort of drains that bar and enhances your firepower. Which is a bit like the crawl system in Thunder Force, where they also didn't do the traditional bombs. That
took a little bit of getting used to, because I was pressing the bomb button thinking, where's my big explosion?
And it's a 2-button game, which allows you sort of to perform 8 functions, between mech and plane and bomb and super.
So that's an interesting gameplay mechanic in that, taking away the big bomb, rather the spread shot bomb, which was very, once you get the hang of it, is actually quite a useful tool to clear the enemies off the screen.
You can dip into this meter as long as you've got a bit of juice in there, and
fills up and it drains, and you can just
as opposed to sort of 2 bombs that are gone and then
So that's how it plays. So let's talk about in terms of how it plays, let's talk about the differences between the Saturn arcade versions.
Yeah, the two versions.
What's the main difference?
Well, I think to highlight the point, you've got the first time we played, you play in the arcade mode to see it in its sort of pure sort of sense. Then when you switch to the Saturn mode, you straight away notice a few things. The graphics are sort of just pumped up, the colours,
a little bit different palettes,
vivid, a bit more detail in the background. The soundtrack is arranged in the Saturn mode.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest.
It's sort of beefier, bassier, it's pumping, and most importantly, they tweak the ratio of kind of sort of explosions to music. So in the arcade mode, all you hear is the explosions. I think that's
or mostly,
arcade setting. In the Saturn mode, the music, the soundtrack, it sort of preferences over the explosions.
It's a good soundtrack too, so you want to be listening to it, but in the arcade, it kind of gets lost in all the explosions. Like I said, it gets lost. It's not that it's not there, it's just that the mix is not quite right.
Yeah, it's like 80% explosions, 20% soundtrack mix. You know,
whereas the arcade or the Saturn version, they changed that around, so you can really enjoy the fairer mix of the music and the explosions and the gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, and other differences, the character selection screen has changed.
Little
redrawn the character models. They look a bit goofy in the arcade mode, like the 93.
They really just gave it a little bit of polish in the Saturn version. The other good thing about the Saturn game, in general for both modes, is that it has a dip switch in the menu.
The menu, which is a really good menu. Like
it is a good menu.
All in English and really well set.
Times and deaths and speed runs and high scores all saved on there with the battery backup. But having the dip switch to play between difficulty levels and setting it the arcade level to as hard or as easy as you want it to be.
And the Saturn mode lets you lock in the sort of the mech super shot with the R trigger, which you can't do in the arcade changer. Which sort of doesn't sound like much, but it means you can direct that super firepower onto a boss and not sort of have to move as much. So that's a bit of a game changer for the Saturn mode.
That probably leads into pros and cons then. What did you really like? I was going to say that my favourite thing between the difference between the games was locking in that, once I got the hang of it, was locking in that robot shot. And it's so great when you've locked onto an enemy and you are just strafing them with that with the 2 barrels just pointed right at them. It's a very satisfying feeling. So that was probably a pro for me. I really enjoyed that. What about you? Can you think of something that stood out?
Oh, look, the whole package is like, turned up to 11, the music, the explosions, the bosses, the mech mode, the firepower, and also a simplicity that sort of runs through it as well. It's not overly complicated. 2 buttons. It graphically is nice. It looks like kind of some of the best sort of 16-bit style, graphics, you'll see, but sort of again pumped up to 11.
I think that's pretty fair because, like I said, I'm not great at shmups. I like them, but I'm not great at. And I was able to get into this, like even on the normal mode, which is normally hard on some of the shmups for me. It was good fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's easily accessible, lets you in the game, doesn't kick you, doesn't smash you, bullet hell. It's not a bullet hell shooter.
No.
There's enough bullets on to keep you on your toes, but it's not like a bullet hell where there's just a million bullets and you can't last more than 10 seconds. So
yeah, and it's just very cool. Like, it's hard to put into words.
Yeah,
all those elements come together, and you're just
when it works, you're just in the zone. It's such a good feeling.
And surviving.
That's
And again, not too long. Some people might complain that it's like too short or whatever. But I think when something is giving you this much of a high in such a quick time, it's you sort of put the controller down after sort of 30 minutes and sort of breathe a sigh of relief.
And we played through it probably 4 or 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
Never got sick of it. It was a great experience. So. Anything you didn't like? I mean, the arcade mode with the mix of the music is a bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
There's not much to. I mean, once I learnt the mechanics, there's not much to not like about it. It's pretty good.
It achieves what it sets out to do. I mean, don't necessarily like the price tag.
Well, there you go. The price tag might be.
But then, you can't put a price on, a piece of art.
On fashion.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, there you go. So there's pros and cons. So I guess the $1 million question is, and it's almost $1 million question. Is it worth getting HyperDuel in a physical form, or with all the ROMs and things that we've got out there? Like, I've got it on my Blast City, which it doesn't run perfectly, but there's all these ROMs and everything out there. Is it worth actually going to get? Spending the money on it?
It's one of those things where it's absolutely worth playing, but I don't know that any game is worth.
Yeah, I mean, you got it because you're a Super Saturn. You're a Saturn.
Yeah, like
nut.
That's it. And you could get it. You could download it for free. There are ways. But so wouldn't necessarily recommend average Joe spending the money on it. But I would absolutely urge people to play it.
Don't buy it,
anyway
but
they
play
can.
it. Yeah. That's pretty much where I'm at too. I'm stoked with it. And the thing is, if you did somehow stumble across a copy, you got it for the right price. It's one of those games where even though it's expensive, it's actually worth playing. So many expensive games are expensive games for the wrong reasons. This one's worth having it in your collection. You would definitely go back and play it.
It's expensive and it's great.
It's a cool game.
Yeah. You can't always say that, because we see a lot of Grail games, a lot of expensive games, and they're rubbish.
Yeah, they're rubbish.
But you've got to pay the big money to have it in the collection. But it'd be a crime to not experience this in some
it's very, very good
shape or fashion. And it's very good.
So with thumbs up in terms of the game, with thumbs down in terms of price.
Yeah,
that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Okay, there you go. That was HyperDuel for the Sega Saturn. Thanks again for watching the videos. Thanks again for doing all that great YouTube stuff. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you very soon for another Den Den Boys video. Peace.
Peace, guys.